Greetings, my beautiful lovelies, it's Emmy and welcome back. Today's video is sponsored by Native, the makers of natural deodorant that so many people love because it works. So Native deodorants are vegan and cruelty-free and contain no aluminum, parabens, or sulfates, which is super important to me when it comes to deodorant, especially when my 8-year-old child starts to develop body odor. He is 8. I can't believe it. So his favorite scent is cucumber mint. I am super comfortable with him putting this on. It totally works. It goes on comfortably. He has no skin irritation. Very light, natural smelling scent, not over perfumey or strong. This is not an antiperspirant, so he can still sweat freely as any child should, but not smell unpleasant, which is great for me. It's sometimes hard for me to relate because I don't have body odor, and my sister-in-law, who's a geneticist, explained this to me. It's because of genetics. There's an ABCC11 gene that determines whether or not you have body odor and if you have wet or dry earwax. I know this is TMI, but it's absolutely fascinating. If you have a non-functioning ABCC11 allele, chances are you will not have body odor and you will have dry earwax, which is me. But I'm so happy to have something like Native for my family to use that is all natural, gentle, smells nice, contains no aluminum, sulfates, or parabens. So in the past, my husband used an aluminum potassium sulfate salt crystal rock. Used that, but then he started to develop a really irritating red rash. And so he stopped using that and tried finding other alternatives with not that much success, but Native has worked for him. He likes the charcoal. I have to say, I like the scent of this one. It's slightly floral. It doesn't smell like charcoal, which doesn't smell like anything. It doesn't smell burnt or anything, but it's really pleasant. And both my boys also tell me it goes on very nicely. It has a very smooth texture and it dries really quickly. So another reason why I like Native is that it's not an antiperspirant. It allows you to perspire. Perspiring is important. We are doing it because we need to cool off. It's just dealing with the odoriferous portion of our problem, which is great. So 3 deodorants are normally $36, but if you click the link down below and use my code, you can get them for $24. That's 33% off. And there's free shipping if you are in the US or the UK. So big thanks to Native for sponsoring this video and allowing me to make better content for you guys. Now today I'm going to be making bee-less honey, honey made without bees. That's just so terribly sad. But I am so curious about this recipe. It was brought to my attention by Tracy. Tracy, thank you so much for sharing this recipe with me. I had no idea of this, never heard of it before, but I'm so curious to see what this tastes like. I mean, honey without bees, does that really make it honey? Not really. I guess that's why it's called bee-less honey, but I'm so curious to see what this tastes like. Essentially what we're going to be making is a sugar syrup infused with flowers. We're going to be using clover that I harvested from my garden and roses as well. And we're also going to be using an ingredient I've been holding on to for a long time, and is this, alum. Alum is actually aluminum potassium sulfate, the same salt that my husband used as a deodorant. Isn't that fascinating? Now, I have been holding on to this bottle of alum for 6 years now. I bought it initially to make crystals with my oldest son, but we never got around to it. But it's gonna be perfect because I need it for this recipe. So alum, as I mentioned, is short for aluminum potassium sulfate, and it is used in cookery, particularly for pickling, for creating crisp and crunchy fruits. Also, it is the acidic portion in baking powder, and when combined with baking soda, you get little bubbles, and that's what makes your bread or dessert rise. Fascinating, right? Today we're going to be using it to make bee-less honey, and I believe this is going to give it some acidity. So interesting, right? Alrighty, let's go ahead and make this. 2.5 cups of water. And 1 teaspoon of alum. And I still have plenty left to make crystals. I love crystals. I love making them. I love everything about crystals. So excited about that. Alrighty, next we're gonna add 10 cups of sugar. This is an obscene amount of sugar. This is about 6 pounds of sugar. Insanity. So much sugar. So confession time. Do you have wet or dry earwax? I thought everyone had dry earwax until I met my husband. Alrighty, now I'm gonna add the rest of this in here. Wow, lots of sugar. So while this is coming up to boil, let me talk a little bit about flowers. Now this recipe is really interesting because if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I asked, what does eaches mean? So this recipe called for 18 eaches of red clover, 36 eaches of white clover, and 18 eaches of roses. What does eaches mean? I mean, I imagine that means one flower, right? But eaches? I've never seen eaches before. So I looked it up and many of you chimed in. Yes, I think it just means one. I found another recipe for this, which is the exact same recipe that goes to a little bit more depth about the description of the flowers. And it does say individual flowers. I guess back in the old days, you could actually buy clover as an ingredient. Isn't that great? If it was in season. So in my backyard, we have a huge patch of clover, which we let go to flower, and my husband very sweetly mows around because I also have bees. So I want to allow the bees to collect the nectar from the clover. And it turns out lots of other native pollinators forage on the clover as well. So happy to leave the clover. If you have clover in your lawn, let it go to flower, because so many insects count on it as a food source. So in that second recipe, it also notes to use some clover that has a little bit of browning on it, which adds some color to the beeless honey. So I noticed that there's some bubbling up here, and I'm going to skim off any of this scum. So if you didn't know already, I am a beekeeper. This is my 4th season and it's been such an amazing experience. I've learned so much. The learning curve is steep. So if you are interested in keeping bees, make sure you take a bee class or join a bee club, because you will definitely have questions, and it's just so great to be able to ask a person that has some experience to help you and assist you at looking at your hive, because you will need help. You definitely will need help, but it's a very humbling experience, I should also say. So it's been 10 minutes, my timer just went off, and now we're gonna turn off the heat. Okay, now for the fun part, we're going to add our flowers. So the recipe calls for both red and white clover. I have a huge field of white clover and only 3 heads of red clover. So I'm substituting 15 heads of white for 15 heads of red clover. I think it's gonna be fun. Here we go. Oh, that looks so beautiful. I never knew how fragrant clover was. It smells great. It smells kind of grassy, a little bit musky, and definitely floral. It's lovely. So 36. I've also included a few that have some brown heads, so that will add to the honey color. Now we're supposed to add 18 eaches of rose petal. Now these roses are nearly spent, but these smell beautiful. I'm calling each cluster 1. So that was like 5. So I'm gonna stir the flowers in to the hot syrup. I'm gonna allow this to steep for 10 minutes before we strain it, and that's it. Now this has taken on such a beautiful honeyed color. I'm so impressed. It's still very warm, so it's much runnier than honey, but we'll allow it to cool before we taste it. Now I'm just going to strain this and remove all of the flowers. Now let's go ahead and fill some jars here. So I'm going to finish drying this up and allow it to cool before I give it a taste test. Okay, see you in a little bit. Alrighty, my lovelies, I am back. It's been a few hours and my beeless honey has completely cooled. And look at this color. This has to be the most honey-like in terms of just appearances that I have made of any kind of dupe before. More so than the dandelion jelly and more so than the mesquite jelly. This color is gorgeous. It's so honey-like. It's absolutely gorgeous. The syrup is crystal clear. There's a little bit of sediment in there, and the consistency is the most honey-like too. Both the dandelion jelly and the mesquite jelly had a jelly consistency, more kind of like a jello kind of texture. But this has the viscosity of honey. Let me show you. Beautiful. It's So this is real honey. It's a little bit darker in color, but the color of honey is affected by what the bees are foraging during what time of year. Typically around here in New England, spring honey or early honey tends to be lighter in color, and as you progress into summer, the honey darkens in color because they're foraging on different kinds of plants. This is the BEELESS honey. Look at that. And here's real honey. It actually flows a little bit faster. I've got a lovely piece of toast here that I've already buttered. Now on the right, I will use the BEELESS honey. Looks just like honey. And on the left, honey from my own hives. Alrighty, so let's try the BEELESS honey first. Itadakimasu. That's pretty good. Wow. But I'm also having it on a lovely piece of buttered toast, so my mind automatically makes that connection to honey. It has the same level of sweetness, has a slight floral note to it, not quite rose, but just floral. And it's very sweet as honey. Let's just try some right off the spoon. I think I'll get a better sense of what it tastes like that way. Oh yeah. That is so interesting. And it is very reminiscent of honey. The level of sweetness though seems heightened and much kind of cleaner and sweeter than typical honey, but I can taste the clover and a little touch of rose in there. It is really nice. The alum I think adds a little bit of acidity, so it is still very sweet, but kind of tones it down just a little bit. So you definitely know that this is not honey, but as a honey substitute, I think this is pretty good. But no bees went into effort of making this. Perfect for vegans. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's compare that with regular honey. Okay. So when you have it side by side with honey, then you just know obviously that it's so different than honey. Honey just has this wonderful, not only flavor, but scent to it of the hives. It smells of propolis, it smells of flowers, and it's just so delicious. Oh yeah, so much more intensely flavored. Wow, that's really difficult to compare. It's so intensely flavored. Although when you have it on butter toast, it's a lot harder to distinguish the differences in flavor. Alrighty, my lovelies, that's how you make BEELESS honey. It's pretty incredible stuff considering it's just sugar, alum, and some flowers that were growing in my lawn. Thank you guys so much for watching, and big thanks to Native for sponsoring this video. If you'd like to get 3 deodorants for $24, that's 33% off the regular price, be sure to click the link down below and use my code, and that includes free shipping in the US and in the UK. Thanks again for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you guys learned something. Please share this video with your friends, follow me on social media, like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! I think there's an ant in my shirt. Get out. There it is. Go away. Oh my gosh.